Rich text for instruction. The objective is to provide an overview of the purpose of the presentation. The purpose of the presentation is to explore the process of selecting rich, meaningful text for instructional use in the classroom. To highlight the connection between literature and curriculum standards, what the audience will learn from the slideshow, importance of text selection for literacy development, examples of rich text for a specific grade level and subject area, in this case, 8th grade American history. Strategies for implementing and differentiating instruction using selected texts. How this will tie into my overall presentation is by introducing the overarching goal, guiding educators on how to effectively select and use rich texts that enhance literacy skills with aligning with curriculum standards. It helps frame the focus on 8th grade American history and the Civil War as a case study for applying these principles. The objective is to define the importance of selecting rich text and how exposure to various genres enhances comprehension skills. Why selecting rich text matters. Rich texts engage students with content that is meaningful, challenging, and relevant. They foster critical thinking, creativity, and a deeper understanding of concepts across subjects. Exposure to high-quality literature builds vocabulary comprehension and analytical skills. Different genres offer unique perspectives and approaches to learning. Informational text teaches students to gather facts, interpret data, and build content knowledge. Narrative text develops empathy and critical thinking by exploring characters, settings, and conflicts. Persuasive text strengthens students' ability to analyze arguments and craft evidence-based responses. Combining genres encourages well-rounded literacy development, preparing students for diverse reading and writing tasks. Examples of how this would relate to a subject like the Civil War: informational text, a primary source like the Emancipation Proclamation for fact-based learning. Narrative text, a novel like Across 5 Aprils to understand the emotional and social impact of the war. Persuasive text, Civil War speeches or editorials for studying rhetorical strategies. Rhetorical. How it ties to my overall presentation is a slide would establish a foundation for criteria and strategies presenting in later slides. By explaining these rich texts, genre variety are crucial, and it creates a rationale for the examples and activities planned for an 8th grade Civil War instruction. Analysis of genres. We will look to tie in how each genre will contribute to literacy development for students as they look into topics such as the Civil War. These factual pieces of work should really tie into each other, and when used together should make one massive piece that becomes the final product. So with such a massive example as the Civil War, some of my best informational advice would be to look into Lincoln's Gettysburg Address or articles analyzing the war's economic impact. This is a way to look at how this affected even average Americans, not just people as soldiers or political figures. And this can actually tie into their lives a little bit more, where it can make an emotional impact. Some of the narratives we can look into, fictional works like The Red Badge of Courage, to understand personal struggles during the war. A good persuasive would be abolitionist speeches or pro-union editorials to explore the rhetorical era of the era. These would really strengthen the tie that the audience would have of genres and also of Civil War. By weaving all these standards together and all these curriculums, it'll explain how combining will enrich the learning experience and prepare students for diverse learning literacy tasks in the future also. Yeah. The main objective of this slide would be to outline the key criteria for selecting appropriate text to align with the standards that you are wanting to develop in your classroom for learning. Some of the key criteria for text selection would be the complexity of the text. Align with your students' learning abilities and do not try to overwhelm them would be your main struggle. This can be easy for teachers to do on such a big subject like the Civil War. If you can make it relevant is a big thing with students. So understanding key concepts of why the Civil War had causes and consequences, and how everyday life could be impacted by consequences and choices that are made. And looking for a diversity, you want to have text that will show a lot of viewpoints, not just from one viewpoint. By doing this, you will be able to look at text maybe from Union soldiers, Confederate soldiers, and also people that were enslaved. By doing this, you'll understand where everyone's viewpoint is coming from, and you'll be able to come up with your own opinion. One good person to talk about would be Frederick Douglass's speeches. He offers a diverse viewpoint and looks at it from many factors. He also was a free man and a slave at one time. In the final part of this learning section, you would want to kind of bridge together why rich text matters with the practical application of their everyday life. This would provide a good foundation of good grade level specific standards and things that you want taught in your classroom. Grade level standard selection. Here we would choose a specific grade level standard related to the Civil War and highlight the importance of these texts aligning with the standards. As an 8th grade American history class, we need to align texts with standards that ensures instruction meets educational goals and promote mastery of key concepts. Standards will provide a roadmap for what students should know and be able to do at this grade level. Text should be very supportive of student learning, and a good examples that you can go off come from the core state standards. Cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of a primary and secondary sources. Identify aspects of a text that reveal an author's perspective or purpose. Informational text should be used very widely, and for a subject like the Civil War, another before mentioned Frederick Douglass wrote the 4th of July speech, which will show the connection of being a slave on a time when we're celebrating freedom. By the end of this slide, I hope people can see that there is real-world application to these texts that meet social standards, social issues to this day. This will set the stage for selecting and analyzing Civil War data in the text in the next few slides. Search and analysis. Do students actually understand where to find information for what they're looking for? The process of searching for literature should use a mix of sources: library catalogs and databases of historical documents and literacy works, educational websites like the Smithsonian Learning Lab or Library of Congress for primary sources, curriculum guides for recommended texts aligned with standards. Are you looking for a concise and powerful speech, or themes of unity and democracy? Students should analyze what they are looking for and how this will provide a very compelling work. Students need to evaluate and persuade and appeals that persuade audiences. Each text should match with 8th grade reading levels while offering challenges for their critical thinking. These themes and curriculum standards should provide them with application of earlier criteria and standards that they're trying to align with earlier in their educations. Even though these are from lower grade levels, it still should provide them with a good base on what they're going off of. This isn't their first look at history. It's just a first look at history from your eyes. The choices you make will provide them with greater depth of each subject. The criteria appropriateness should tie into their age level. Should we talk about certain things that are about death? It can be tough. This is understandable. But this is war, and it is a very important war that changed our country. So, selecting criteria that is appropriate for 8th graders can be difficult, but with careful analysis, you can come up with the correct solution. Text justification. What justifies the selected texts? Why are we choosing these texts? Does it meet literacy standards? Are we identifying a purpose and a perspective of why these are important? What instructional values are coming from this? Is it concise and powerful? Does it encourage analysis of themes such as equality, unity, and sacrifice? What features does it have? Rich vocabulary, the length of the book. This does matter to students when they can't find information very easily and everything is just tied into a bunch of nonsense that seems like babbling to them. So, from an earlier story, The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane, this supports analysis of a character development in historical context, provides a personal lens on the psychological impact of war, and also encourages critical thinking about courage, fear, and morality. All these should open up people's eyes to the vivid imagery of what he is seeing and the problems that he is experiencing in his life. Some of the models that we need to use for rhetorical appeals, like ethos, pathos, and logos, are something that needs to have uh, direct, direct encouragement and understanding. So what emotional depths does this go to? How does this actually affect us? Provide students with a well-rounded understanding of the era also, because it can be hard for students to understand that in this time there was no electricity and how everything worked, no internet. That is hard for people to understand at times. How this would tie into your overall understanding is connecting it to the standards again. This will set us up for learning as we progress further into this subject. Implementation plan. This is where teaching a plan and incorporating a selected text instruction, including activities and strategies for learning topics. Conduct a close reading to analyze rhetorical devices such as parallelism and repetition. Group activity. Rewrite the speech in modern languages that were done by historical figures. Put these in more of their terms by them writing it themselves in their own words. Let them think about why did certain characters like Lincoln emphasize themes of unity and sacrifice during this war. Use a story map to track the protagonists in each storyline. How does Crane's portrayal and fear of courage challenge traditional views of heroism today in his story, The Red Badge of Courage? On these things, they need to learn how to facilitate this also in group discussions, where they can debate differing perspectives of text. Learning to talk to each other about different opinions is strong for them for their learning. Formative ways to assess learning is exit tickets, exit tickets, summarizing key takeaways from each text. Summative, create a presentation or essay comparing the perspective in the three different texts that I've went over today. How it ties to the overall presentation. This would connect selected texts, actual teaching strategies, and demonstrate how each student can deepen their understanding of the Civil War content. Differentiation strategies. The purpose of this objective is to ensure all students can access and engage with the selected text that you have. Possibly provide audio versions of the Gettysburg Address or the Red Badge of Courage. Use annotated versions with vocabulary aids and simplified explanations. Incorporate visual aids like graphic organizers for key concepts and themes. Advanced learners challenge them and analyze the broader historical impact of speeches or comparative essays on different rhetorical styles. Offer additional readings, maybe such as Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin for deeper historical context. Look into using bilingual resources or side-by-side translations. With peer mentors during group activities, support comprehension also and understanding. Focus on visual and auditory learning strategies. Timeline visuals of the Civil War or reenactment videos are also great ways. Students with learning disabilities try to break text into smaller, manageable chunks for analysis. Use their technology. Use their text-to-speech programs. Provide scaffolding activities such as sentence starters for discussion prompts or guided notes. Create mixed ability groups. This will encourage peer learning and collaboration. Assign roles within groups. You can have a questioner or a connector, a summarizer, and these are small examples of different groups that you can break down. This will ensure that students are actively participating in activities. Cultural responsiveness highlight diverse perspectives from such eras like the Civil War. Encourage students to connect to their texts. Overall, by the end of this slide, I hope that showcasing diverse needs can be addressed with maintaining high academic expectations and engagement with your selected text. Reflection. This is where we look at lessons that we've learned along the way. We discuss the insights that we've gained and implications for how our teaching was applied. The lessons that we learned can recognize diverse genres that contribute to the student's understanding of complex historical topics. Learn to balance these complexities with accessibility also to students' needs. The importance of standards should be aligned. Should be understood by this slide. Gained insight into how aligning text with grade level standards ensures purposeful instruction on your end. Some challenges that could be encountered should be reflected on your end. Balancing the rigor and accessibility for students with differing abilities should be a main focus. Finding texts that are both historically accurate and engaging for middle schoolers is difficult at times. Impact on teaching approach. Enhanced focus on scaffolding, integrated collaborative, and cross-curricular activities make learning more interactive. Student engagement is developed over time. This can be difficult at first, but with a deeper appreciation for students' critical thinking, they will add to discussion. Recognize the importance of connecting historical content to students' lives and experiences to this day. For your future considerations, maybe look to add more multimedia or technology tools to enrich text. This can also add more understanding and contribution. Even though if you think something is perfect, continue to refine it. Select different criteria and even look at different cultural relevances and student interests. By the time we're to this slide, hopefully implementing and evaluating instruction and reinforcing the importance of thoughtful text selection is very, very noticeable to you. This will promote a meaningful learning experience for all your students. In conclusion, I want to summarize the key points from this presentation and reinforce the selection of rich texts. Text selection, the importance of choosing texts that are diverse and engaging and aligned with curriculum standards. Also, with literacy development, informational narratives and pervasive text contribute to comprehension and critical thinking skills. Practical strategies for integrating text into instruction and addressing diverse student needs. Reflecting the value of an intentional, student-centered approach will be meaningful to rich texts. Reinforcing of the main message. Select rich text that is critical to literacy and thinking and historical understanding. Text choices enhance student engagement and support academic growth across all content areas. This is a call to action. Encourage educators to evaluate and expand text selection practices. Highlight the ongoing need for professional reflection and adaptation to meet the evolving needs of all students. By the end of this, hopefully this all ties together in the elements discussed, providing a cohesive and compelling conclusion to how student engagement is with broad subjects such as the Civil War. This emphasizes the role of rich text in creating a meaningful and effective learning experience for students.